Hello my Gravestalkers, and welcome to another edition of Graves Corner, my little place where we can talk about horror in all of its aspects, from like things I'm afraid of, to actual horror movies, to whatever. We'll just keep it scary. Hopefully you got to watch my first one and you enjoyed my little scary story about something I did that was really stupid. This one is going to be kind of along the same lines. And if you haven't yet, make sure you check out my last Graves Corner, actually 2 Graves Corners ago, which was my very first mini movie, Afternoon Tea with the Dead. And the one after that is the bloopers that followed. For today's Graves Corner, we're going to talk about a couple of things in my life that are things that I'm afraid of, possibly for stupid reasons, or possibly they're common fears and I just don't know it. So let's get sharing. Okay, but before we do, please subscribe to my channel. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Click that bell icon so you get notifications, blah blah blah, that whole spiel. And of course, if you get something from this, please share it with somebody you think would enjoy it too. Okay, so the first thing that pops into my mind that is something that I don't think is a very common fear is burning down my house. I mentioned this in my very first Graves Corner that, I'm afraid of plugging in too many things because I'm afraid I'm going to burn down my house. It's an old house, the wiring is kind of old, you just never know. And we live with a bunch of animals, and if something were to happen to them because of my stupidity, I'd never forgive myself. I don't know if I'd be able to go on. And I know every homeowner has that same fear, you check the oven to make sure you didn't leave anything on. If you do a bonfire in your backyard, you make sure you put it out properly. It goes a little bit deeper than that for me though. I'll check the oven to make sure it's not on, and then I'll leave for work, and then I'll drive about a block away, and then I'll come on back because I don't believe that I saw what I saw when I saw that the oven was off. That's how crazy it is. And I think part of this goes back to what I also said in my first video, that I've led kind of a sheltered life, including the fact that I was not allowed to burn candles or incense or anything well into my high school years. In fact, I was so rebellious about it that, taking a step back, I went to a Catholic high school where there was a little chapel, and I would go into the chapel on my breaks between classes to light candles, just so I could get used to lighting candles. And yes, I know you're supposed to donate first before you can light a candle for charity stuff. I didn't do that. I might have done it once. Anyway, I was also transitioning out of my Catholic life into my more pagan lifestyle. And not that it's a requirement, but lighting candles and incense is just kind of a natural thing that comes with it. So I wanted to make sure that I was comfortable doing that. And it's also weird because I'm not afraid that I'm going to leave my candles or my incense burning, but I'm afraid that my oven is going to be left on and that is going to cause a fire. It doesn't help that I have a cousin who was living with his dad, my uncle, and blew up their house one day. I think it might have even made the news. Something about gasoline or kerosene or something in their basement with their heater. It just, like, a whole bunch of things that you shouldn't put together were in the same space. And they blew up their house. They lived. I think one of their pets did not. See, he knows I'm talking about him. You guys may know Lincoln. He was in my Afternoon Tea with the Dead video. Excuse me if I'm a little distracted. Okay, where was I? So basically, it's a natural fear, taken to maybe a little bit more of an extreme than it should be. Okay, here's another one. Now that Lincoln has joined us for this part of the video, I don't know if I could trust anyone else to take care of my animals except for me. I barely trust my dad to take care of them when I'm gone. One, I'm the only one that ever walks my dogs. To be fair, that's because my dad is kind of on the old side. He just turned 69. Nice, I know. But my other dog, Buster, did knock him down once when he tried to walk him. But there's been such a learning curve with this dog in particular, yes, I know, that I don't know if I have enough time to devote to training somebody else how to take care of him. Not in terms of feeding or medications, but in terms of attitude. I mean, he's the sweetest dog in the world, but he's a little sneak. In the first week that we got him, he actually found a way to pop the latch on our gate and escaped. After a few minutes of him being in our backyard, I went outside to check on him, and he was in our neighbor's yard just wandering around. Luckily, he stayed local, so I was able to get him back. So now we have a little clip thingy that we put on our latch so that he can't pop it open. Every time I go to put my dogs outside and I notice that my dad forgot to put the clip on the latch, I get irritated. I might not be the easiest person to live with. Don't look at the camera like you're agreeing with that. mean. He's mean. And then on top of all of this, he has to wear a very special leash that ties around his body because he cannot wear a traditional harness at all. He would wear a harness, and he is different from other dogs. He doesn't pull me to get me walking. He likes to stop and sniff everything. If I want to continue walking because we're both trying to get a workout in, he will go limp, and the harnesses that he would wear will just slip right off of his shoulders because he's of a thinner build, and then he would be free. Luckily, I'd have treats or something on me so that I could get him to come back, and he wouldn't run away from me. But it's always a fear that he'll find a way to slip his leash or whatever harness type device I have him in and run towards something and never come back. However, I think he's more likely to run if somebody else is walking him. So even though I was a dog walker for 3 years professionally, and that's actually how I got Lincoln, I don't know if I'd ever be able to hire somebody else to be his dog walker because I just don't think they're gonna know him like I know him. And my greatest fear of all is losing him, because he's my baby. Okay, now let's talk about my newest fear. And this one is probably more common, but it's still out of nowhere because I've never been claustrophobic before. I could watch movies like The Descent and alien outer space movies where, you know, they're in their suits and they're walking outdoors. And by outdoors, I mean outer space. Or climbing through small things, small tunnels, and not freak out at all until the last couple of years, where all of a sudden I have this fear of being buried alive. To the point where my dad and I have actually had conversations about if I happen to die before he does, that he has to have me cremated. Make sure you take all my vital signs, make sure I'm actually dead, but just in case I died and there's a chance that I could be revived, a la the City of the Living Dead. No need for me to wake up in a coffin and wondering if it's the kind of coffin that's wooden and I can Kill Bill my way out of it, or if it's metal and then I'm screwed. So my dad is under strict orders. If I die and he is still alive, you make sure that I'm cremated. And now I've got this on video as a record. Legally binding. I don't know. Now, the origin of this fear is not so much fun. I had some health complications a couple of years ago, and I ended up having to have an MRI done and a spinal tap. The spinal tap wasn't that bad, although I did have some complications for about a week after the spinal tap, but the main issue was the MRI I had, because I had never had my head in an MRI machine before. And it's basically you in a giant tube with loud sounds pounding around you. And the loud sounds aren't that bad if you have the headphones on, and they're supposed to be piping in music in the headphones so that you have a nice distraction. But unfortunately, for some reason, the stereo was completely broken, and they couldn't play me anything, so they just put earplugs in. I ended up mentally singing Bohemian Rhapsody to myself like 27 times until the entire procedure was done. On top of that, there was a leak in the contrast fluid that they put in my arm, so I'm in the MRI, having this loud noise pounding in my ears, and then I'm also feeling this huge radiation burn stinging going on in my arm. And nobody told me that if I was feeling this, that maybe I should stop the procedure and have them redo it. So I just sucked it up until the very end. And for almost that entire winter, it was even hard to drive my car without rolling down the windows because I felt like I was being suffocated. I got over that, but every once in a while when I'm falling asleep and everything's really dark, I have to talk myself out of feeling cocooned in my bed. And if I'm watching a movie and people are being buried alive, it's really hard not to empathize with those people. I'll still watch those movies, mind you, because I love a good horror movie, but it is a little bit harder. Alright, so that's it, my top 3 weirdest fears. I mean, they're probably not that weird when you really boil them down to their source. Oh! Bye, Lincoln. But in terms of going on with your everyday normal life, that's a little on the strange side. What do you think? What are your fears? Comment down below and let's talk about them. Try to one-up me if you can. Remember, I will be coming out with a Graves Corner video every Thursday, so make sure that you subscribe and click the bell icon to make sure you get those notifications. And you can always find me at Maire Graves CLE on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and sometimes TikTok. I also have a Patreon page if you are looking for some exclusive content. Tiers 2 and 3 will be getting their first exclusive stuff over the next week. And you can join any of the tiers in order to get shoutouts at the end of my videos, including Graves Corners and my Terror Tuesday videos and my horror hymns when I start putting out more of them. Alright, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video, and remember, horror is just around the corner. There we go. Sound now. Where we're basically blah. Make sure you check out my last Graves Corner was blah. And if you haven't yet, make sure. Hello, baby. Look at my mic. Catch you, Tiji. Hey, catch you, Tiji. No. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I barely trust my dad to take care of him when I'm dog. When I'm dog. He's so cute. I love you. He's licking his stitches right now. Don't lick your stitches. He's not the kind of dog that trying to touch my boob just because he's of a thinner build, or he used to be. Him and I both need to lose weight. Stop licking your scar. He's getting them off on Friday. And you can join either. The fuck am I hearing? You need to pound your music? What am I, grandma? Drive away.